penalties and turnovers and just inability to get the game time goal late lead to the Minnesota Wild falling by a score of 4-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's break down all the action on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? The Minnesota Wild come up short 4-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The 3-game winning streak is over. And for the Wilds, there were a lot of decisions that went into the game before they even took the ice that we want to break down here in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Thank you for joining us. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And for the Wild tonight, I didn't want to come into this and do the defenseman rant again, but I don't think I have a choice because we see it again. We saw it again here tonight, that you've got just these critical mistakes that are directly impacting games and are directly leading to goals, and too many penalties tonight. And you just can't start a game like that. You can't start a game like they did against a team like this. And look, let's get it right. Let's get it out there right away. This is a Pittsburgh Penguins team that got throttled by Toronto in their most recent game, 7-0, and Toronto didn't have Austin Matthews in the game. So you're going to get a ticked off Penguins team regardless, because nobody wants to get embarrassed like that. But you just spend all that time getting back in to the game, getting yourself in position to tie the score, and you give it right back to them. And I thought Kaprizov did a lot of really good things here in tonight's game, but you can't take a penalty like that. You can't take a penalty there. And I don't care. I know in looking at the replay, it didn't look like it was enough to warrant a penalty, but guess what? There were other plays that certainly did, and there are things that are not to the level of being called for a penalty. There are calls that happen during a game that maybe shouldn't be called as a penalty, and there are things that happen that don't get called. It happens to every team in every game. And so I just am going to miss the argument that the refs are out to get the Wild and to give Boston opportunities to get back into this game and to win Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm just not going to hear that argument, because there are plays that impact every team that don't go their way, that do go their way, that go somebody else's way. You just were playing with fire, taking that many penalties against a Pittsburgh power play that has now scored multiple power play goals in 3 straight games. That was always going to be a death sentence in this game if you just continued to march to the box and give them opportunities to get back into the game. But this is not the first time that this has been a common refrain for this team. This is something that over the last couple of seasons they have become well known for, is just taking way too many penalties. And I find it hilarious that it was never a suggestion of just not committing penalties. Like, that was never on the table to be changed when we were talking about how bad the penalty kill was. It was never on the table to just not commit penalties, which is the ultimate way to fix an ailing penalty kill, is to not get them exposed a bunch of different times. And yet here we are. And you gave Pittsburgh those 2 goals. There was an odd man rush on just a hideous turnover in the neutral zone. And then you have, and I know I pick on these guys a lot, you have the play behind the net where the puck bounces off of Goligoski's stick, stolen away by Pittsburgh right in front of the net, and they're able to chip it up and in. And so I'm legitimately asking, like, what are we getting that is so valuable for those guys in sheltered minutes that you just don't feel comfortable not having them both in the game? I know the team is shorthanded right now with Jared Spurgeon not able to play, but you got Dakota Mermis, who's just sitting on the bench right now. And I gotta feel like because this is exactly what's going on. You are playing those guys like 10 minutes. And I know tonight they had Merrill had 12 minutes. Goligoski had 15. But guess what? Damon Hunt had 15 minutes, 52 seconds. And you know what? He wasn't responsible directly for a goal. And so for the 50th time this season, I'm asking, what are you getting that you can't afford to take them out of the lineup? If you are having to shelter minutes, guess what? On the road, the opposing team is going to find a way to get to them. And the Penguins did. And so at this point, I mean, why? Why? Why do we continue to do this to ourselves? Why do we continue to put ourselves in this position? And the other thing that is annoying is you had after the game, the penalties will be addressed. The penalties are going to be addressed. We're going to make it known that guys can't commit penalties. What, are you going to sit the whole team? Like, short of real consequences, short of real consequences, is it really going to stop? Holding the stick. How many times have we seen that penalty over the last couple of games? And again, I know there were a couple calls that were pretty tic-tac, but let's also look at the instances in which they happened. The Wild had just spent the entirety of the game working back to tie the score. And Kirill takes a penalty 12 seconds later, and Pittsburgh immediately scores. You can't... You put yourself in that situation, you're just asking for it. And for the 13th time this year, it seems like that's what you get. Now, there were some good things that happened. We almost as if a switch was flipped. You see the Wilds, change to, hey, we got to get to the net. We got to get to the net, and we got to take advantage of a beatable goalie. And they do it to get all 3 goals. Lettieri right in front off a deflection. Ryan Hartman's goal was a shot that kicked out to the side, but it was a close enough shot that Nedeljkovic had moved to the right side of the net, and the puck kicks out, and Hartman's able to bury it past him. And then Middleton's goal right in front of the net. Folks, the perimeter shots are the ones that the goalies want. They're the ones that the goalies want to face because it's easy for them to get a read on it. It's easy for them to see what's coming. And so if you get closer to the net and you start to just pepper the net with those shots, you see what happens. And so you have all that. You have the comeback. The Wild were shorthanded tonight because Matt Zuccarello got hurt sometime in warmups, I would imagine, to where he wasn't able to go, which puts you behind the 8 ball. And you really could have used a player like Zuccarello in tonight's game. And I don't know. I think on the Kaprizov front, and I see that there are some comments that we'll get to here in just a little bit. We see moments with Kaprizov, like where he chased down Sidney Crosby at the end of the game to prevent an empty net goal. And he just is not quite. He continues to get closer, which is why I think we continue to see him get playing time. You see him continue to get minutes because that's the only way that he's going to get out of this. And so there is good from this game, but there also is just such frustrating pull your hair out stuff that we continue to see with this team. And so I want to try to do a little bit of both, because we've yelled enough about they who must not be named. Bob with the great nicknames for they who must not be named. And so now that I can get off my soapbox from what we saw from this game, we're going to talk about plenty more. I'll go through kind of my thoughts on the Gustavsson-Fleury situation, because that did not play out the way I thought it was going to, but I don't know that I necessarily have a problem with it. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Kaprizov. We'll get to all of your comments as we continue today's Locked On Wild postcast after this. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. The holiday season is here, which means it is time to give some great gifts to your loved ones. You may want to send your significant other or a sibling to a concert, a comedy show, or go watch the Timberwolves win another game. Game Time is here to help make sure that your ticket buying experience is as stress-free as possible. Game Time offers last-minute tickets, and most importantly, so you don't find out that your seat view is obstructed, they show you every vantage point in the arena. It could not be easier to order tickets with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is incredibly easy to use, and there are a wide range of betting options available, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. If you took the Minnesota Timberwolves to beat Miami Heat tonight, you are sitting pretty with FanDuel, because not only can you bet the NFL, you can bet the NBA, the NHL, you name it. You can bet it all with FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. We're back, continuing tonight's Locked On Wild postcast as the Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 4-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wild now 12-13-4 on the season. And it is time for us to get to your comments here as we break down the action. Now, as we do that, I want to talk about the Gustavsson-Fleury situation, because people were certainly upset that Fleury didn't get the start. I kind of figured he would, because I think you would want to see Gustavsson against Boston. That's how I would have done the goalie splits between tonight's game and tomorrow night's game. But the reality of the situation is this. It's hard to argue with the numbers that Filip Gustavsson has put up recently. He's been the best goalie in the NHL. And there's a lot of emotion that was going into tonight's game for Marc-Andre Fleury. And so had Fleury started, he not only would have been combating the Pittsburgh Penguins, he would also have been combating that emotion. And so the fact that the Wild went to Gustavsson tonight, I didn't really have a problem with it. Now, I did have a problem with what happened in front. And so I don't think it would have mattered who the goalie was tonight. If you turn the puck over behind the net and you give Pittsburgh an opportunity to just chip one, like you're chopping a sand wedge to get one into the net. If you give those opportunities, it doesn't matter who your goalie is. And so it's a game you just have to move on from. And honestly, there was a lot made of that decision. And I just kind of, I don't know. I didn't really get why everybody was so up in arms about the decision to go Gus as opposed to going Fleury. It's just how it worked out. And I honestly, that was it was as low on the list for issues with this game as it probably could have been. So I wasn't super upset about that one. Jeremy gets us going. Why the heck can't we get Murmis into the lineup to replace Merrill or Goligoski? I don't know. I don't know at this point, because Damon Hunt played more minutes than the both of them. And I just have to ask myself, what are you getting with the 12 minutes that John Merrill played tonight? Yes, he had an assist because Vinni Lettieri was able to deflect his shot into the net for the goal to tie the score at 3 apiece. Cool. Awesome. What did you get besides that? What do you get besides that? I don't know. I'm honestly asking. I feel like you could just give those minutes to Dakota Murmis and you wouldn't have to worry about it. But here we are. We continue to see it on a nightly basis. And so I'm just going to, I guess, keep screaming for it I'm just going to keep screaming for it, I guess. Quadrum joining us. I'll say Kaprizov looked really good despite taking a penalty that led to the goal, especially the last 5 minutes. And again, that play that I pointed to at the end where he chased down Sidney Crosby to prevent a potential empty net goal. He had some really good opportunities. He had the one where he weaved through the 4 different Pittsburgh skaters and just wasn't able to get the goal home. And this is why there hasn't been any discussion of sitting him or moving him down in the lineup. I honestly think it's something that he just is going to have to continue to play through, because he's either going to have to figure it out or it's going to heal, and then he'll be able to kind of move on from it and get back to what we have seen over the last few years. There's no benefit really of, especially some of these recent games where it seems like he just hasn't been able to finish. If you take that out of the lineup, that's not going away. So you just have to continue to let him try to work through it and hope that sooner than later he gets it figured out. And yeah, that penalty that just was the backbreaker. You had expent all this momentum to tie the score, and all of a sudden then you're back down by a goal. It was just an absolutely just disastrous momentum killer, and it ended up costing them the game. So for those that say that I only pick on John Merrill, there. I said something negative about Kirill Kaprizov. That was a penalty you just can't have. Terrible. So there. Let's continue with the comments here. Bob, Bogosian was horrible and cost the third goal along with Frosty. I think I kind of like Golacosti better. But Frosty the Slow Man's not bad. They both have nice rings, and Bob he's been on the nickname chain for pretty much the entirety of the season. I get a good laugh out of pretty much all of them that Bob has come up with. And yeah, we've talked about Bogosian, and I would be really interested if there was the equivalent of like the all 22 for the NHL. I'd be interested to go back and see if Bogosian himself committed atrocities to cost particular goals, or if it ended up being the fact that he's paired with John Merrill. Because the last couple of games he's been fine. I would say he's been good even over the last couple of games. But now you go back to being paired with Traffic Cone, and you just see the numbers plummet. So I would be really interested to see that how that played out, because again, third pairing, and I screamed it at the beginning of the game. You can try to shelter your third pairing as much as you want. When you're on the road, teams find a way. They find a way to get those guys on the ice in critical situations, and a couple of them in this game, to say the least. Steve, Stench of Dean is still around. 3 Wild whined about penalties, and it will take a while to get the benefit of the doubt back. And this is another part of kind of my general annoyance with penalties, is because, like, if there are plays, and I certainly thought there were a couple that were iffy, you can't let it ruin the game. You can't let it derail your momentum, because, again, there are inconsistencies in every game against every team every year. And it seems like the Wild are just never able to rise above that. Every time they get in one of these situations, it seems like they just kind of wilt. You can't have that, because, again, I'll say it another time, it happens to every team. It is not a Wild specific problem. And so the fact that it continues to happen, and it seems like they continue to react in adverse ways, is just really bad. You can't have that. And so let's get some composure here. Where was the composure during the duration of the second half of the second period and the start of the third period, where the Wild scored 3 times to not the score at 3 apiece? Where did that composure go? It's gone. Brian joining us tonight. Just start every period in the box. Add in the fact that we never score on the power play, and it's the same issues every game. Can we decline the penalties? Like, can you just decline getting the opportunity to go on the man advantage? Because it doesn't seem... It seems like you either get just horseshoe saves by the opposing goalie, or you just have power plays that are incapable of getting quality looks. You spend a lot of time just kind of with 3 of the 4 wheels being able to drive the car. You spend a lot of time just kind of falling down the hill and not being able to actually generate any looks offensively. I will probably throw a party the next time the Minnesota Wild score a power play goal, because it feels like it's been forever, even though it's only been 5 games. And the broadcast focused tonight on the fact that it has been several games for the Minnesota Wild since they had the power play advantage over their opponent. Why do you think that is? because the Wild are one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. That's why. And so the fact that they were kind of keeping track of that was odd to me, because this is something that's happened pretty much every game this season. They have not had the power play advantage because they keep taking penalties. Maybe if you stop taking penalties, or maybe if there are some actual real consequences for taking too many, I don't know. Just a thought. Quadrum. Johansson looks like another rendition of Zucker. When we had him, all he had was speed but could never score. And the irritating part with the Marcus Johansson experience is the shots he's passing up. The drives to the net, which lead to a quick pass at the end, as opposed to just taking the shot. And yeah, you're probably not going to score, but guess what? You're definitely not going to score if you don't shoot. And so he's been stuck on one goal for a long time. Michael Russo keeps tweeting during games, I swear Marcus Johansson is going to score again at some point this season. He hasn't yet, but you're not going to unless you continue to put the puck on the net. So shoot or find somebody else in that spot that can. And guess what? You move Ryan Hartman up because Matt Zuccarello was out. He scored a goal. Marcus Johansson hasn't scored a goal in my lifetime. Just frustrating. And then Brian brings up a great point here as we continue to navigate the comments. Pittsburgh received some really nice bounces. That Crosby power play goal was just stupid. The fact that Faber was trying to get it and it just happens to go right onto Crosby's stick. Like, you couldn't have placed it any better. And he's able to let it rip. And that ended up being the game-winning goal. The puck luck that the Wilds continue to not have, and it seems like their opponents continue to be able to have, is frustrating too. So that was not lost on me. The fact that goal, I mean, somebody find the voodoo doll, because it seems like the Wilds have a voodoo doll of them that maybe is attached to a magnet, and then the puck is attached to another magnet, and they just cannot come together at all. Like you used to do in elementary school, where you had the magnets and the ones that couldn't come together, and you're just trying as hard as you can to get them close and they just won't. Maybe the Wild have that with some sort of voodoo magic. Question from Quadrum. We keep saying Cap is hurt still, but he hurt his back, lower body, yet his skating, dragging the puck that looks the best, just isn't scoring, which is hands for the most part. Good news. I think we're getting to the point with Kaprizov now where he's going through a similar stretch to what Matt Boldy did. It's not as though Kaprizov is not getting opportunities. I mean, he had a couple of grade A looks tonight. He just wasn't able to get him to go. I think he right now is far closer to pre-injury than he was at the beginning of the season. Now, is he fully back yet? Probably not, but he is way closer physically to where we had hoped he would be after coming back from the injury. And so now if he can just get some goals to get him back on track, I think he'll be able to get out of it. It comes down to me, and it's not a play that led to him scoring a goal or anything, but the fact that he was able to get to Sidney Crosby and force Crosby to not be able to score that empty net goal, that's an old school Kaprizov. the fact that he had kind of that PO'd, like, I'm going to just move you off the puck, that was encouraging for me. And again, the stick handling that he did, weaving through the 5 different Pittsburgh players, was another thing that was encouraging. So he's getting close. He's not fully back yet, but once he gets a goal or two, I think we're going to start to see him go on a little bit of a scoring run like Matt Boldy has, because I thought Hines nailed it afterwards. I thought he did pretty good. That penalty cost him the game, but I mean, short of scoring, there really wasn't much more that Kaprizov could have done in this game for the Wilds. Brian bringing up another good point. Odd man situations are just killing this group. Same old over and over. Crosby's goal, fortuitous bounce, but that's what happens when you're killing penalties all night. Nailed it. This made me sad. Bubba's sports cards. Goligoski getting power play time is insane. I'd rather throw Hunt or Middleton on the second unit. You're not wrong. Guys, that power play is so frustrating, because I have had people throw at me that they are just incredibly unlucky, like from a finishing standpoint. But like, your power play is measured on the goals that you score. And if you're not scoring goals, it's not a good power play. It's incredibly frustrating that you continue to get opportunities and you just can't bury them. You got to score. You have to score in order to have a successful power play. So how about you just score? Trav, the Wild do not have a second power play unit. When the first unit goes off, the power play is officially over. You could argue the power play is over the moment the Wilds go on the man advantage. If you want to go like galaxy brain on it, you could argue that it's over the moment the Wild stop playing 5-on-5. They'll score at some point, and again, I'll probably have a full out celebration because it just feels like they haven't in any amount of time. Can we call that Pennsylvania puck luck? Because that makes me think of that Philly bounce off a ref. Yeah, we can certainly call that. We can call that Pennsylvania puck luck. No Philly special or anything here. We don't talk about such things. Denny joining us tonight. What's happening, Denny? I'm already wondering what Hines is smoking. It was nice to see Vinny on the fourth line again, and of course they scored. Denny's been on the Vinni Lettieri train for a while. It's not a coincidence that he scored the first time that he got into the game, as the Wilds. He was good with Duhaime and Dewar when that combination was put together. And so I don't know. I'm on the train. I'm on the line of thinking that you've got guys that have shown they can consistently play in Lettieri, in Dakota Mermis, in Damon Hunt. So if you are going to say that there will be consequences for penalties, for too many penalties, now that you have a full team with Spurgeon and Brodin out of the lineup, make the words be backed up with actions. That's definitely not how that saying goes, but my brain is absolutely fried. I love this for a call. Kaprizov will have his best game yet and will score tomorrow. I love that call. And Bubba's Sports Cards backs it up. I think the Wild need to let Kirill see the puck more on the power play. It looked like he wanted it bad, but he just didn't get the best looks. Again, this is not something that you're going to be able to rest Kaprizov to get. He's just going to have to continue to play through it. He continues to get critical minutes. And so now really all he needs to do is score a goal to get himself back on track. Could he do it tomorrow night against the Bruins? I would love that. And until he does, we're just going to keep hoping for it. I would put Marcus Johansson on the fourth line with an apology to the Deweys. Put Vinny up with Ek and Boldy. See, I don't mind the call to put Johansson on the fourth line, but I'm not breaking up Kaprizov, Boldy, and Ek, because that's going to be the best way to get him back on the score sheet, is playing with two guys that are playing some of their best hockey of the season. You add him into that mix, they're going to give him additional opportunities to be able to get to the net. And so I don't break that combination up. Now, Johansson, who we've been saying for, it seems like weeks, too many passenger minutes in that top six. So I'd be more than happy to see him bumped down in the lineup and give an opportunity to somebody else to actually shoot the puck. So, Marcus Johansson. See, Bob has been on the nicknames all season. These are great. Swerve 95. Tell you the truth, we have seen the best Kaprizov can offer. Write that down. And Kaprizov would bring 3 to 5 players and prospects right now. I don't think so, because people are going to look at what he has done from a scoring perspective and say he's damaged goods. And so until the Wild can get him back on track and get him scoring some goals, GMs would be happy to take him, but it's not going to be for that price. So the best hope that we have is that he figures it out here by the end of the season, and that then if you want to unload him before his trade protections kick in, then you can talk about it then. But he's got to... GMs are going to look at that score sheet and say he's got 3 even strength goals right now. They're not going to go with any of their can't miss prospects. You probably get a first round pick or 2, but it's not going to be a major haul at this point. Denny, the mojo ain't working. Bench him. I don't disagree. I don't disagree, because if you're going to be in the lineup, you can't just be using it to get a workout. Shoot the puck. If you get opportunities to shoot the puck, let it rip. Let it fly. Go score some goals. That's what it comes down to. All those cliches. Pucks in deep. All of it. So we'll see what happens for tomorrow's game against the Boston Bruins. I gotta tell you, folks, unless we get a complete surprise, probably looking at 0-2 on the road, because Boston is a very good team, especially at home. And unless you make some changes defensively, Boston's just going to go right at that underbelly of this Minnesota Wild D-core. And that means goals, that means shots, and that probably means some penalties too. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll have you covered tomorrow as well. And we'll have an episode for you in the morning. Just got to figure out exactly what to hone in on here for tomorrow. So we'll get all that ironed out, but I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. Football score tomorrow. It could be 3-0. That is technically a football score. So, but yeah, I know where you're going with this, Swerve, and we'll see what happens. But yes, we're here for you guys. Win or lose, we have fun here in the postcast. So thank you all for tuning in. And we'll have you covered for tomorrow's game as well. We'll see what happens with the Minnesota Wild. Hopefully they get back into the win column, but we'll see. Make sure that you subscribe to Locked On Wild if you haven't already, on YouTube, on your favorite podcast platform, so you don't miss any of our postcasts, any of our episodes, any pregame previews, any of the content that you can find as part of Locked On Wild. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Thank you, NASCAR Kelly. Make sure to hit that like button and to just continue to enjoy all the content that we have to offer. We've got new episodes for you every single Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.